What is social inclusion? For me, social inclusion implies a visible and a noticeable existence in the eyes of the state, of a living entity, of a person. And what is this visible existence? It implies that a person or people who can afford to live with dignity, who can earn minimum wages, whose access to housing, healthcare, education to his or her kids is addressed, and whose workplace-related safety and health risks are mitigated. And I will be merely repeating the obvious in front of this learned audience, that when it comes to waste management sector, nearly all front-end employees, workers associated with the sector, and their families are invisible entities, or in other words, socially excluded or marginalized. Why is it incumbent upon the industry to address the issue of social inclusion in waste management sector alone? And why is it that we need to sort of give some sort of a priority access as far as social inclusion is concerned by this industry? Why only this sector? And I'm just building my logical thought on why I think so, that waste management needs to be the priority sector for the industry, which includes everything from plastic to construction to electronic waste to medical waste, is a direct outcome of what you call the industrial revolution, championed by the industry to deliver so-called quote-unquote progress to the human society. Armed with tools and technologies to change shape and form of extracted resources from earth into various use cases, we have delivered progress without doubt. But in this process, we have created what we call consumption aftermath. So if a product that is created to deliver progress in an industrial factory or an industrial setting, how can its aftermath be addressed in an artisanal or a non-industrial setting? So therefore, the need for the industry to play the primary role, the leadership role, the pivotal role in ensuring social inclusion in waste management sector becomes unquestionable. It's an industrial output. So if it is an industrial output, it has to be addressed by the industry which created it. For the last 2 decades, First World had created this convenient bypass. And why was this convenient bypass created? Because Third World offered to process this waste type on a business model or a value proposition that was premised on social exclusion. If you work this other way around, and if you say, let's say if this bypass was not available, how would First World have solved this issue? First World would have to sit down, go back to the drawing board and say that I can't ignore social inclusion. And therefore I have to create models where social inclusion becomes the default input rather than a desired goal. We should be pursuing social inclusion not as a desired goal, but as a default input. That's a constant that can't be challenged. And therefore, I propose that if the industry has to truly imbibe the spirit of EPR, because it's a powerful thought, it will need to alter the framework to think about solutions and start bottoms up. A rights-based approach of these communities and people who are involved in this sector need to become default setting to create models, to create frameworks, and to create processes. And that will define what I call the minimum base, and everything else can get topped up around it. And that is the way I would presume First World would have solved this problem if the convenient bypass was not available. So instead of social inclusion as a desired goal, let it become the default input. And I hope that it will ensure a legally binding and a morally acceptable value chain of waste management to emerge, and one that is spearheaded by the industry.